Hey guys, it's Troy here with another episode of Pest Preps with Troy. In this episode, we're going to be talking about bed bugs. So I wanted to give you a little bit of information about the bed bug, what my company has you do when preparing for a bed bug treatment, and why we have you do that. Kind of talk about what we like to get in and to treat, and then also want to get you some information to ask a pest control company in your area. Uh, Questions like the types of treatments, questions like how much, things like that, and what will kind of pinpoint you into the right direction of the proper company for yourself. So let's get started. Uh, the golden question with bed bugs right now is, how do I get them? Currently, with the epidemic that is happening across this country, you could actually get bed bugs almost anywhere. The most common, of course, is through travel, staying at hotels, motels, things like that. Kids are bringing them home from schools, sharing a locker with a classmate that may have bed bugs. Work, you could sit down in a chair of a coworker that has them at their home and get one that way, or you could go to the library. Somebody dropped off a book that's been sitting underneath their bed for a week, and then the bed bug got in there. They sent it back to the library. Now you've got one. So there's a few different things that could really happen, and they can move around. Because of their sheer size, they go unnoticed. A fully matured adult bug is only, I think, an eighth of an inch to a quarter inch at most, which is 4 to 6 millimeters. So they can go unnoticed for quite a while before you actually know the issue is there. On average, a lot of my customers are going anywhere from 2 to 3 months, and then they actually physically start seeing the bugs, where the bites had actually started 3 months ago. And the bite is really kind of the first initial indicator that you might have an issue. Of course, they do say that you get the 3 lunch, dinner, breakfast bites, but it's not. That's not true. All the time, it just depends on the number of bugs that you have. In each of the instars, there are 5 of them before full maturity. The bug has to have a single blood meal to shed his skin and grow to the next instar. So from egg through the 5 instars to the fully matured bug, it ranges from being in the egg. The egg itself was roughly a millimeter, which is 1/25 of an inch. So a lot of people are going to look right over that and not even notice it. And of course, if bugs go unnoticed and they do reach full maturity after having a blood meal, that bed bug could go actually about a year to a year and a half in the perfect situation before having to succumb to the end of its life. So in this treatment, it is key to do everything in a very timely manner because of the repopulation rate of this bug, the lifespan of this bug. They can really be a huge issue in a very short amount of time. On average, when I go into an issue that's been 6-7 months, I mean, it's a 2 or 3 treatment battle, and there's a lot of preparations that need to happen for myself just because of the conventional liquid powder treatment that I do. And of course, we might as well just get right into those. Bear with me, I'm going to read right off the sheet actually the preparations that I give to my homeowners, landlords, tenants, and that I actually have just sitting in my office ready for anyone to come in and take. So step 1, I like you to go into the bedrooms. It doesn't matter which one first. I usually say the one that you notice the issue in first. So if it's your room, mom or dad, start there. If the kids might have noticed some bites first, I'd start in little Sally's room. Get her room, pull all of the clothing, cloth items out of the room, such as whatever is in the closets, in the dressers, maybe you got underbed dressers, or you got kind of totes, hampers, things like that. Remove all those items. Before removing them from the room, I want you to bag them up, so that way you can take those bagged items straight to the laundry room or straight to the laundry area or a storage area where you're going to store the bags, or even out to your vehicle so that you can take them to the laundromat. With the clean items, you can actually put those items directly into the dryer. For myself, I prefer with older dryers to run them 45 minutes at high heat, just to make sure that the dryer heats up long enough at the highest temperature to actually kill the bugs. They say with some of the newer dryers you can go a half hour at high temperature. If it gives you that peace of mind though, I say push the 45 minutes. With the dirty clothes though, of course you can launder that first, but the hot water from the washing machine actually isn't going to kill the bug. It is the heat from the dryer that's killing the bug. Now, granted, personally myself, I'm not a fan of a heat situation for bugs, but if you can get localized heat from a dryer to the clothes, the bug has nowhere to go and escape. That issue will be contained and solved. If you can localize heat to certain curtains that can't be kind of dried, but they can be steamed or they can be heat pressed, do that. Kind of make sure that there are no live bugs on them if you're going to heat press them, because they will make a mess. But you do want to apply local heat to certain areas of those to make sure that the bugs are gone. And also at the same time, it allows me access into the closets, the dressers, the frame and structure of the bed. So we'll move on to step number 2, which itself actually is stripping the beds. I ask that you strip both the mattress, the box spring, some of them have those little covers on them. Actually pull any cloth item off the bed itself, bag that stuff up, do the same as you did with the clothing and other cloth items, store those away. That way they can be dried before, or they can be dried after the treatment's done, but before you put things back, just to kind of make sure that anything in there might be dead. Step number 3 is going to be, of course, to take all that stuff and get started on doing that, just to kind of maintain area and access for the technician to get in and out. If stuff's piled up in there and stacked up, he's going to have a tough time getting around. And of course, in this situation, being small areas and trying to work around with a powder or with a liquid 2-gallon B&G sprayer that I use, it's kind of rough sometimes. And also, I'm on a time constraint. I've got to get in, get the job done, and get on to the next customer. So, of course, making sure that I have ample time and access to that area is key. Which brings us into step number 4, is to take those pillows and the stuffed animals, throw rugs from around the house, bag those up. If they can be dried, of course, run those through the dryer. If not, you'll want to find some sort of way to treat those, or to at least get them individually inspect thoroughly to make sure that they aren't a problem or an issue. Step number 5 is to go into those rooms and remove everything from the nightstands, remove jewelry drawers or junk drawers out of the dressers, just to kind of make sure I have access to that stuff, and to actually remove things out of end tables, magazines, stuff you might have in the living room on the end table, just so that I have access to all those furniture items, because the bugs are going to be where you're at most of the time. So with step number 6, of course, we get into the cleanliness and removing all the clutter in the house. The more areas that I can get the chemical, the more areas I can ensure that is being properly treated for the issue. If the bugs start to figure out there's chemical, they're going to get away from it. So they're going to areas where the chemical hasn't been. The first thing I usually see, because they're a little tricky, because they are completely blind, they only follow you and the carbon dioxide that you breathe off. So a lot of the time I will see them actually move directly up the wall, and they will actually find the seam at the top of the ceiling and choose left or right. They think that they're hidden, but actually they're still in visual sight for you. So it's also one of those monitoring things to know kind of what's happening, and if there's anything still moving around live in the house. Moving on to step number, well, we'll talk more about 6 actually. Just to kind of reiterate the cleanliness. Go around and vacuum. Make sure that you flip up the couch, the bed, those kinds of things, just to kind of vacuum up any of the lint and dirt, pet hair, stuff like that. That way the chemical itself actually has no hindrance. There's nothing for it to bind to other than the surface or the area that I want it to. Uh, with all that pet hair and things like that piled up under the couch or in the baseboards, it's going to actually stick to all that stuff and actually not get into the area I need it to. So then if you do get that cleaned up, you just cleaned up all the chemical as well. So to make sure that everything is vacuumed thoroughly, vacuum out the couches, vacuum out the recliners, vacuum the beds, the box springs, the frame that the bed sits in, just to make sure that I have access to those areas. Once you're done with the vacuum, of course, you're going to want to directly discard that bag immediately, or if you have a canister vac, dump those, discard all the stuff inside of there in one of those store bags or in a garbage bag and remove that out of the house as well right away. Getting into step number 7 is actually, as you're moving that stuff around, vacuuming and kind of cleaning stuff up, don't put everything up against the baseboard. Kind of give it some area for everything to be out away from the wall so that I can actually physically inspect the area, so that I can treat the backs of the bookshelves or the shelving units or things that you might have up against the wall, and then actually also be able to treat back there as needed. Step number 8, of course, is the thoroughly discarding of all those items, such as the vacuum bags, any of the used bags that you have laundered stuff with. That way, if anything did get off in those, they're not going to have a chance to reinfect the house or reinfect the areas that have been already inspected and deemed okay. So step number 9 is usually after you've talked to a company. If they're going to go with a conventional powder liquid treatment like my company that I work for, I do ask to have the switch plates and the outlet plates and the socket plates, things like that, removed off the wall, just so that I have access to actually apply a powdered chemical into the wall void itself. That way it kind of plumes around inside those stud areas and makes sure that if anything did squeeze behind the plate covers or did squeeze behind the outlet covers, that they do have a chemical to get into. That's not only going to help flush them out into the liquid barrier that I just put down, but also going to ensure that if they don't come out, they do have some sort of chemical back there that is going to hinder their ability to sustain. Of course, they are going to eventually have to come out and get that blood meal, unless they have reached that full maturity and already had a blood meal. That could be one of those areas that those bugs do go dormant in, so you do want to make sure that those areas are addressed as well. Another thing you're going to want to do is a recommendation that I make to most of my customers is go out and look at mattress covers and the different things that are available for covering up the box spring. Actually, I know all of the products are going to be labeled for mattresses, but the nowadays mattresses really don't have holes or areas for the bug to get into, so they're pretty safe. Now, of course, if they do have holes or kind of the old style eye holes with the little handles on them, those I would recommend to get a cover for, but I recommend it to be put on the box spring. And I recommend that because there are all those cracks, crevices where the woods and things meet or the slats come together, so that if I do get chemical in there, but the bug has a spot to go hide, you're basically encasing that box spring in a bag so that the bug is trapped in there with the chemical. So he's going to be forced to get into chemical at some point and actually die out. And also at the same time, if there are anything hidden in there that are going to get into the chemical, they don't have a chance to get back out into the house, and basically you force them to die out with inside the bag. One thing I do stress highly to my customers is, of course, 4 hours, no contact. Each company is going to have a little different standards depending on the products that they use. I do also recommend that before any kids or pets come back into the house, that any of the powder is cleaned up off of the hardwood floors, linoleum floors, areas that it might have settled out of the air. There isn't really going to be a lot of it, but there will be enough that it is still a chemical. You do want to get that cleaned up. It's not really too hazardous per se, but it's just something you don't want to deal with if you don't have to. And of course, it is mainly meant to be into those cracks and crevices and hidden, but of course, every once in a while it does get a little messy. So just get it cleaned up right away. Any of the liquid, once dry, is going to have a residual effect for a certain amount of time, depending on the actual chemical used. So you'll want to talk to a company about that. Usually in a bed bug treatment, I like to have cats and dogs out of the house completely, just so there isn't a chance of them being in that kennel and actually breathing in any of the dust particle that might be in the air. So kids and pets I do highly recommend to be removed out of the house while the treatment is being done. You also want to make sure that once the treatment is done, the chemical is dry before the kids and pets have contact, because of course it is a chemical. Really, the EPA doesn't allow us to use many chemicals that are much more harmful than any household cleaning products, but you know what can happen with those, so it's best to just make sure that everything is dry and that you've done kind of whatever I ask, because I have to follow that label, and that's what the label says. The label is the law. So with that information, we'll kind of start tying into what questions you're going to have to ask a pest control company, along with what I just told you. Each company is going to have a little different standard, especially if they're doing a heat treatment or a combo treatment, which is a heat treatment with a powder treatment, or a liquid powder heat combo. I don't really know what's out there for that option. Personally, I don't know enough about the heat to know if I could get a proper treatment done, because the way I try to explain it to my customers is, if you're in a room that is supposed to go to 140 in order to kill you, at about 90 degrees you're going to get uncomfortable and run away. Well, since the bugs can't run away, they're actually going to bury themselves into the wall voids, into the furniture items, and actually break that temperature to 120, where anything 120 and below isn't even going to kill the bug. So you basically just paid to have a heat treatment destroy all of the candles in your house, laminates on the walls, counters, anything like that. So really, really research what treatment the company is doing. Ask them as many questions as you can. If they're doing a liquid treatment, ask them what type of liquid they're using. If it's a repellent chemical, it's going to get them kind of activated and run around. If it's a non-repellent, if they're using a powder also, if they're using a diatomaceous earth powder, if they're using some other, like Cymexa or something like that, that is a silica-based gel, which actually isn't even a chemical. So you'll want to kind of know what's what. Of course, each company is going to have a little different standard on their preparations for each of their treatments. Of course, one thing I really, really, really do stress is that you actually do call a professional company for this treatment, because it is very, very hard to actually eradicate bed bugs out of your own home if you're not, because the over-the-counter products are not working the way that they say they're going to. There is a lot of room for error with over-the-counter products and bedbug treatments. A lot of people are really leaning on the fact that over-the-counter products say that they're killing eggs. And I have yet to see any over-the-counter, any prescription strength chemical outside of the Cymexa dust actually even work on the eggs. The egg is actually pretty impenetrable from what I've read about it, from what I know about it, and it is key in actually making sure that the bug kind of survives. There are other bugs out there with similar situations as well, where nothing just breaks that egg cycle. So you've got to wait for the bug to hatch out, but also at the same time the bug hatches out, you want to make sure that your chemical is at its most potent. So that's kind of a tricky situation. Personally, our company and the products that we use allows us to get in on a 2-week interval, every 14 days for re-entry. So I'll get back in, I'll readdress the situation, make sure I'm getting the chemical to the bug, getting the bug solved, making sure the bug's getting into the chemical and dying off, making sure that you're not bringing any new products or new affected items into the house, and kind of make sure that we've got a plan going for when this is solved to not get them back. Uh, it is key to try to figure out how you got them. Of course, like I said earlier, it is very hard to figure out exactly how you got them, but if you do your best to try to figure it out, it will definitely help in the long run. Another thing that I have noticed with a lot of my customers, though, is after the bedbug problem is solved and you've confirmed that with a professional company, step away from the issue. Do anything that you can do to not think about the bug. There is a very, very good chance that this bug could give you kind of a psychological kick. It does weigh heavily on a lot of people. I've seen some customers 3, 4, 5 months after a treatment, they're still kind of waking up cold sweats, panicking, thinking they're being bit at night. And there's really nothing going on. It really set into them and kind of give them a traumatic episode dealing with the bedbug issue. And that in itself, it's a pretty expensive and extensive treatment. So you're going to want to find a company that is going to do the best for your situation. If you've got limited incomes and things like that, of course, you might want to lean towards the conventional liquid and powder treatments. Whereas if you're just willing to throw any amount of money at it and you don't care what it costs, you might want to go with a heat treatment. But of course, for a heat treatment or a combo treatment, you're going to want to talk to a company that actually deals with that. So that's about as much as I got for tonight, guys. If you do have any questions or comments, of course, drop it in the comment section below. If you do have any tips or tricks on where to go from here on the episodes and things that I can do to better these episodes, drop those in the comment section below. Like I said before, you won't hurt my feelings. So just let me know what you think and how things are going for you. And if you need anything at all, let me know. Feel free to contact me down below. I'll get back to you in a timely fashion. Also, keep your eyes and ears open for the next episode. The next episode, I do believe, is going to be over fleas. We're getting into the springtime here, so fleas could start to become an issue here for you and your household. So we'll give you a few tips and tricks on those. But until then, guys, you have a good night, and we'll see you soon.